Russel leaps towards the two men, and he decides to use magic that can be learned with a principle that doesn't regard the level of one's circle. He uses blink and appears in front of the guy with his spear. The pagan cultist is startled, and Russel pushes his spear into him. The guy quickly responds with a blast of energy. A huge blast ensues, and Russel speaks within himself that Spiegel has to make it out alive. Suddenly Russel appears in another dimension. He hears someone tell him that it's about time that he goes. He looks at his body, and he wonders where he is. A strange man walks up to him and asks if he's finally awake. The man asks him how the world he was in was. Russel informs him that he lost his dream that he persistently held on to. But he found it again and protected it. Suddenly, someone appears in front of him that shocks him. He sees Spiegel in this dimension, and he asks him if he was unable to run away. Russel rushes to meet him, but he's stopped by a transparent wall. Russel hits the wall in despair, and he realizes that in the end, he wasn't able to protect anything. The man behind him informs him that he's wrong. The man calls his name and calls him the heir to the dragon power. Russel turns towards the man and asks him who he is. The man informs him that he's the master of this wicked world. He said those people call him by another name. He tells Russel that he's called the Temple of Mirrors. Russel looks at him in shock and wonders why he's named that. The man says that this place reflects the deepest fears in one's heart. He says that in his case his deepest fear is qualification. He reminds him of when he told himself he's just a third-rate magician, and says he always wonders why such a power was given to him. There was also the time when Blaine said he saw his father run from the war zone, and he says Russel always wonders if he deserves to wield power. He says that, to that question, he found his answer when he told himself that he got stronger to become a guardian and protect more people. Russel collapses to his knees, asking if this long period was a test. The being replies that it indeed was, and that he has surpassed his own answer by showing that even without power, he can be a guardian by choosing to protect a boy. Russel returns to his young self and sees a vision of Spiegel telling him that he won't forget the promise. The Temple of Mirrors informs him that the boy in front of him is not an illusion, but the purest courage he's protected, and must continue to protect. The being calls him successor, and declares that he will fulfill his long-standing oath. The man removes his mask and says there will be a new light. When he removes his mask, he transforms into Spiegel, and informs Russel that it's time to move forward. Suddenly, another screen pops up and notifies Russel that he's absorbing dragon blood to reconstruct his body. He's told that he has obtained the first golden mask. Meanwhile, Geron tells Alan that his performance is quite impressive. He asks Alan what his name was again, and Alan, who has been badly injured, apologizes to the princess for being unable to save her. The masked guy mentions that he's heard a lot about being a genius, but Alan's ability to grasp the situation immediately upon return and take action based solely on limited information was a valid move. He says he was surprised that Alan even used the artifact as bait to try to save the princess. Geron says that all that doesn't matter because nothing has changed. The masked guy becomes impatient and tells Geron to stop playing around so they can get down to business. Jaren flies toward the barrier with the artifact that Alan brought to break it down. With the artifact in hand, a magical contraption appears in the sky that can break down the barrier. Mr. Spiegelman recognizes the artifact as the artifact of the divines. The princess wonders if the artifact can be blocked. Geron concludes that once he finds the item, he won't hand it over to any of these scoundrels. Referring to the Archduke or the pagans, he says that he'll show the world that he's superior to them. Geron orders the artifact to break through the barrier. The contraption fires a shot at the barrier, but the impact is suddenly stopped when a hand comes out of the rift. The weight of the power that comes out of the rift shatters the contraption. Geron watches in confusion as the contraption is broken. The other onlookers are also shocked that the artifact of the divines was easily blocked. Alan also notices that the contraption was blocked, and he sees someone there. Suddenly, Russel comes out of the barrier with the blaze lance in his hand. The masked guy and Geron spot the mask on him, and wonder if the mask could be the thing they're looking for. Russel flies towards the masked guy and tries to attack him. The guy quickly creates a portal to block the attack. Russel tries to cut him with the weapon, but it is stopped by the portal. Suddenly something unusual happens that shocks the masked guy. Russel manages to cut through the portal and trashes the man. After he's done with him, Russel jumps away, and even Jaren is shocked that someone can cut through a portal. Russel goes to untie Mr. Spiegelman and the princess and tries to communicate with them. When he unties them, Mr. Spiegelman asks him what he said since they couldn't hear him over the mask. Russel removes the mask and says that he's relieved that they're safe. Mr. Spiegelman and the princess are both shocked to see that it's Russel, and they ask him how he made it. Alan smiles and concludes that it seems the bet his master made won't be an easy one. The princess reaches out to Russel and tells him she's glad that he returned alive. Russel grabs her hand and stops her when he sees Geron advancing toward them. He suggests that they can talk about the details later because he has to handle this. Geron comes closer and calls Russel an inferior one, saying he is becoming an annoyance. He informs Russel that just because he returned doesn't mean anything changes. He says that he'll kill him and take the artifact for himself. Moments later, a great explosion occurs in the air as Russel flies up and takes the fight to Jaren. Jaren insists that the mask belongs to him. Russel asks if Blaine schemed all this, but Jaren tells him to shut up. Russel flies into the sky and teleports behind him. He asks him to stop right now and admit that he is Blaine's shadow. Russel hits him with the blaze lance, knocking him hundreds of feet to the ground. The impact is so strong that Jaren keeps flying from one spot to another. Russel flies down to join him. Jaren replies that the truth is simple and he's not Blaine's shadow. He casts one of his original magical constructs called the Grammar. Jaren hits the ground with his sword, and a great explosive power rips through the earth toward Russel. The explosion causes smoke to cover the entire area for a short while. After the smoke clears, Russel seems unscathed, but he wields 2 blaze lances and is in his dragonification mode. Jaren declares that if only he had the mask, Blaine would become his shadow. Jaren screams that power makes everything possible. Russel reaches into his compartment, pulls something out, and informs Jaren that he seems obsessed with power. Russel brings out the mask to put it on, and tells Jaren that power isn't the most important thing. A screen pops up before him and notifies him that the mask assists thinking and induces the manifestation of dragon blood. The system notifies him that the second draconification has become possible and asks if he would like to use the mask. Russel confirms that he'll use it, and his second draconification is activated. A great pool of fire surrounds him, and Russel tells Jaren that courage comes before power. Suddenly, the mask merges with his face, and his dragon-like eyes become more defined. Jaren scoffs at what he says and retorts that it's just bull coming from someone who has never fallen into darkness. Russel looks at him for a while and stays quiet. Finally, he informs Jaren that that's not true. Our boy summons about 5 blaze lances and says that he was in darkness too. Russel says that the only difference is that he followed the light. Finally, he combines all the lances into an original magical construct that he calls the magical spear. Jaren calls bull on Russel's claim to have experienced true darkness. He leaps forward to attack Russel and demands that he prove it. Jaren jumps at him with his strongest attack and insists that he prove the light he followed. Russel counters with the magical spear. The strength of the collision releases a huge explosion that covers the area. It takes some time for the smoke to clear up, and both of them survive the explosion, but Jaren collapses to his knees. He looks to his side when he feels a sharp pain. It turns out that the impact of the spear tore off his right arm, and he's shocked. He looks at his hand on the ground and wonders how this could have happened when he has a chimera's heart. Russel, still standing, walks toward him to continue the fight. Jaren wonders why he's unable to reach Russel even with all the power of the chimera's heart. Russel tells him to give up since it's clear he can't win. Those words provoke Jaren and he tells Russel to shut up. He suddenly grows several other arms in place of the one that was cut off and loudly declares that he can't lose. He releases a great deal of mana but starts to cough blood since he seems to have suffered some internal damage. Meanwhile, the system notifies Russel that he has 10 seconds left to use the second draconification. Russel looks at the screen and replies to Jaren that, just like him, he can't lose either. Our boy prepares the magical spear to land his final attack within the 10 seconds. He patiently waits for Jaren to make the next move so he can strike. Jaren launches at him and tells Russel it's time for him to die. Russel doesn't move at all and waits for him to get close enough to land a decisive blow. Our boy cranks up the power in the spear and directs all the energy to one spot using overheat. With one swing, he pushes the spear into Jaren, who was hoping to tear him to pieces. Jaren is shocked as the spear pierces him. The resulting explosion tears through Jaren's body and extends for almost a mile behind him. Even the rocks behind him don't survive the impact of the hit. Smoke covers the entire area, and Russel waits for it to clear. After the smoke clears, Jaren, who had been torn apart, coughs profusely and argues that it's not yet time for him to go. As he protests, he continues to cough out blood, and his body breaks. Soon after, he gives up and collapses. In his fallen state, he thinks about the power of Chimera. He tells himself that he wanted to become a dragon, but he couldn't see it through to the end. As the light dies in his eyes, he wonders if this is his destiny. Suddenly, a nearby volcanic mountain is triggered by the explosion that had earlier occurred. Russel watches as magma erupts from the mountain and pours down. While he watches, he hears some people call out his name. It turns out to be Alan, Mr. Spiegelman, and the princess who survived. Russel smiles at them and waves back. Out of nowhere, Pepper jumps on Russel from behind. Russel is happy that he's okay, and Pepper roars in unison. They both hug, and our boy thanks God that Pepper is fine, while Pepper cries tears of joy. The princess watches their reunion, and Russel says it's time for them to go back to Endymion. Sometime later, after they leave the place, a mysterious person appears and picks up Jaren's amputated hand. The man, who appears to be with the pagan cult, takes the hand and goes into a portal. Sometime later, in the Endymion Supreme Court, the judges read out the charges concerning Jiran, a mage of the Red Tower, who conspired with the pagans and threatened the security of the kingdom. The judge reads out that his teacher, the Red Tower Master, is also responsible for them. The man requests that the defendant in question, Master Blaine, step forward. The judge asks him if he has any objections to the things read out. Blaine says he doesn't, and claims that he didn't notice Jiran's behavior due to his negligence. Blaine says that the sins of a disciple are for the master to bear, and as the Tower Master he must rightfully bear that responsibility. While he's talking, the Archduke Bismarck rises and signals to the judge. Bismarck stands up and asks the judge if he can say something. Bismarck glares at all the Tower Masters who are sitting nearby to threaten them. He finally tells the judge that he isn't wrong, but it's also true that the Red Tower Master has made significant contributions for the sake of the nation. The Archduke suggests that they conclude this with about 6 months of probation. The judge nods in acceptance. Meanwhile, Blaine grins widely. Master Daria, who is also seated, reasons within herself that they're all in on it, but she doesn't speak. She looks upwards at the king, who is watching the trial from above. She thinks to herself that the Archduke will constantly keep challenging the royal family's authority, and she wonders what on earth His Majesty is planning. Meanwhile, in the palace, Russel gets a change of clothing, and Mr. Spiegel commends his new look while Alan stands nearby. The princess walks in to meet them and says she didn't know they were here. The three men bow and greet the princess. Princess Hecate asks them to rise and says that she should be the one to greet them. She bows to them and sincerely thanks them for saving her life. She particularly thanks Russel, and he's surprised. As she walks out, she winks at him and says she'll see him again. As she jams the door to the room, Russel looks like he's about to explode, and the other men try to call him back to reality. He quickly comes back to himself and reminds himself that he has to focus. He reasons that this is an opportunity to imprint the Raymond family in the minds of the people. After the trial, all three men go to meet the king in his court in front of everyone. His Majesty informs them that their gathering today is meant to honor the knights for their contributions. He says that they will discuss each individual's contribution after recognizing their collective achievement. The king announces that Spiegelman resisted the pagans, threatening the safety of the kingdom. He orders that he'll be awarded 200 gold coins and 2 pills of a mana-enhancing drug, which Spiegelman gladly affirms. The king tells Alan, the second son of Count Page, that he has valiantly defended against the wicked pagans who were aiming for the relics, and he'll be granted the Medal of Dawn, Morgenrot, and the title of Baron, to which Alan agrees. Lastly, the king turns to Russel and asks him to lift up his head. The king says that in the past, his father deserted the battlefield, posing a significant threat to the kingdom's safety. He says it was only natural for the ministers to doubt the loyalty of the Raymond family. Russel is stung by those words, and anger rises in his heart. His Majesty tells him to prove it here today, and Russel asks him what he means. The king informs him that the Flame Tower Master told him that he has advanced to the 5th circle. Meanwhile, Master Daria watches the proceedings and says within herself that the deeper the darkness, the brighter the light. His Majesty tells Russel that with such achievements, nobody will doubt his words, and Blaine is shocked by the sudden turn of events. He realizes that the king plans to make Russel a hero in front of everyone and weaken the Archduke's faction. Russel gets up and projects his circle in front of everyone. Blaine reasons that it's a first circle magic spell that reveals one's attribute. But for these people who know nothing about magic, there's no better spectacle. The people watch in surprise, and Master Melville notices Russel's projection of all 5 circles. Master Melville comments that it's truly explosive growth, and even Alan seems impressed. As the onlookers watch, even Master Niccolo is impressed. When Russel finishes his presentation, he kneels down again, and the king says that he thought his father was a withered flower, but no one would have thought he was hiding such a beautiful seed. Russel replies to His Majesty that his praises are too generous. The king announces to everyone around that regarding the special case of the Raymond family, he elevates his title to Count. He says additionally, along with a 3rd-class military merit deal, he announces that he hereby grants Russel the right to levy taxes on 10,000 households in the neighboring city, and Russel affirms his commands. After the king finishes his statements, he places a hand on Russel's shoulder and warmly asks him to rise. When Russel rises, the king thanks him for saving his daughter. He says that he's not speaking as a king but as a father. His Majesty mentions that he wishes to repay him, and asks if there's anything he desires. Russel thinks about it and tells the king what he wants. Later on, while at his house, Russel recalls that he was worried about how he'd get what he asked for, but things seem to have worked out great. He looks at the dragon heart he asked for and considers how withered it looks. Although it looks ugly, it will show its true form when infused with magic power. He hopes he can handle it and starts to release mana into the heart. Suddenly something shocking happens and Russel shouts. The heart suddenly explodes into bits and releases a bright blue light. Along with the blue light come streaks of lightning. Suddenly, the bits of the dragon heart transform into a horn that's surrounded by lightning. Russel is shocked to see this, and suddenly a screen appears. The screen informs him that the dragon heart has revealed itself, and he has obtained the Forgotten King's horn, which has lightning essence. After Russel reads the message, he realizes that the horn will have to infuse its power into him like the last one. He closes his eyes to brace for impact, but the horn just releases its essence into him without piercing him. Russel recalls his last experience and says that this one is much more bearable. He lets out a sigh and his entire body begins to radiate with lightning. He considers the powerful thunderbolt energy around him and is surprised that a third of the fifth circle is already filled, even without fully absorbing it. Another screen shows up and notifies him that he has absorbed the Forgotten King's horn with lightning essence to his limit. He's told that the mana exceeding the absorbable limit will reside within him as dormant power. The screen also notifies him that his intermediate lightning attribute understanding has reached its limit and has evolved into advanced lightning attribute understanding. Suddenly, Pepper appears out of nowhere with a roar. This time, he looks much bigger, and Russel is shocked by his new appearance. He wonders why he changed and asks Pepper if he was affected by the power of lightning, to which Pepper nods. Suddenly, Pepper turns around and jumps out. He jumps out of the window and flies into the night sky. Russel rushes to the window and calls out to him. Pepper soon returns to the window, and Russel wonders if he wants him to climb on his back. Suddenly, Pepper grabs Russel by his shoulders and flies outside. Russel is scared out of his mind and tells Pepper to wait. He suddenly stops shouting when he notices how high up they've flown. He realizes that Pepper didn't just grow in size, but his flying ability has greatly improved. Russel tells Pepper that him growing bigger means he'll be easier to spot, but Pepper signals to him not to worry. Suddenly, he lets go of Russel and transforms into a flame. The flame becomes wings that join themselves to Russel, allowing him to fly. Our boy comments that he now has swift wings made from spirit flames. He asks Pepper if he should call these spirit wings, to which Pepper excitedly roars. Russel considers the fact that he's gotten the King Horn's lightning essence, intermediate fifth circle mana, and now spirit wings. He says that he feels like he can face any opponent without fear with this power. Meanwhile, Brother Hubert goes to the Master when he hears she has a mission for him. Master Daria informs him that the mission is to escort Count Kimberly, the special envoy of the Kiel Kingdom. She says that although the Kiel Kingdom's national force is weak, they maintain their position as a neutral nation because of their abundant mana stone production. She adds that apparently Marquis Jorio Comanche of the pro-Empire faction tried to bring the Empire in there. The Master says that rather than falling under the control of the Empires, Count Kimberly must have thought it was better to join hands with them. Later, as Hubert heads out, he thinks about the Kiel Kingdom and reasons that this mission won't be an easy one. Before he steps out, Russel calls out to him. Hubert tells Russel that it's been a while, and Russel replies that he's glad he's well. Our boy asks him if he's leaving for the Kiel Kingdom right now, and Hubert asks him how he knows. Russel asks to come along with him and informs him that Master Daria gave him permission. Russel recalls that, from what he remembers, Hubert will lose his life on this mission. Hubert seems surprised by Russel's offer, and a screen pops in front of him with a mission to make it back alive with Hubert from the unknown danger. Russel says within himself that there's no reason to stop him from leaving, so he has to go with him. Shortly after, the two men head to the Kiel Kingdom, and Russel uses his cool new wings. Hubert informs him that they're almost there. He tells Russel that it's reassuring to have him by his side, but he asks if he has a reason for coming along. Russel just replies that he wants to have new achievements, and it'll be an achievement to do a mission with him. Russel flies ahead and says that he'll go ahead and check the situation out. As he flies, he recalls that the mission's failure leads to Hubert's death, and the Empire interferes with Kiel's internal affairs, which means there's a high chance that the Empire was involved in his death. While he flies, the screen pops up again and gives him the mission to escort the special envoy of Kiel Kingdom to enter the kingdom's territory, with rewards of 5 intermediate mana stones. Russel immediately spots some men fighting with Count Kimberly's men. He moves closer to them, and decides that he's going to eliminate the threat from the Empire. He attacks the enemies using a magic skill called a fire cannon, and tells himself that he has to prevent Hubert's death from happening. Count Kimberly notices the use of fifth circle magic and wonders who the person is. Russel soon comes down after he has helped knock down the intruders. He approaches the Count and introduces himself as a mage from the Flame Tower who has come to escort him. Count Kimberly lights up and comments that he's the famous Sir Russel. He thanks him for coming and says people started trailing him the moment he left the castle. Russel notices some problems nearby and turns to investigate. He asks the Count to give him a moment and walks toward the place. From a far distance, someone senses Russell's presence. The man reasons that Russel is at least on Spandam's level and maybe even more skilled. Some of Count Kimberly's guards struggle to fight the man off, and the lead guard orders the others that the Count must not have gone far yet. The lead guard surrounds the man with the other guards and tells them that they need to buy more time. The man just cackles at their resolve. Suddenly the fight continues, and he stabs 2 of the guards at once. Russel looks farther away and spots the person who's attacking the Count. A huge explosion suddenly erupts from the place where the fight is happening. The explosion breaks down several surrounding trees, and the mystery man stands amidst the trees. Russel realizes this man is the one who killed Hubert in his past life, and he recognizes him as McRae Hughes, the swordmaster of the Empire and the late Spandam's master. Shortly after, Hubert arrives on the scene and meets Russel with the Count. He tells them that he's glad to see they're safe and introduces himself to Count Kimberly. The Count introduces himself too and thanks him for coming to help. Hubert looks down at the dead guard and informs them that the people tailing the Count are part of the Imperial Army, based on the scent he picked up. Russel comments that it looks like they weren't trying to hide their identities. He says they either don't feel the need to, or things were just too urgent for them to bother concealing themselves. The Count is shocked by his words, and Russel turns to him to confirm. Suddenly, the princess of the Kiel Kingdom steps out of the carriage. She removes her cloak and informs Russel that he's as extraordinary as the rumors say because he was able to quickly uncover the situation. She formally introduces herself as Princess Camilla of the Kiel Kingdom. As they extract them from the place, the Count explains that Marquis Comanche is trying to consolidate power by having his son marry the princess. Count Kimberly explains that with the backing of the Empire, Comanche's ruthlessness might be incomparable. Kimberly suddenly asks if there's a reason they're rushing so much since they've shaken off the pursuers, and Hubert tells him that they chased them as soon as they left the fortress, and he's sure that there's another group behind. Russel, who is carrying the princess, reasons that they've created some distance and he doesn't see any signs of them being chased. Regardless, he keeps getting an ominous feeling and wonders why. Suddenly he senses something and tells everyone to get down. They all bend down just in time to avoid a mighty attack that sweeps past their heads. The attack is so strong that it cuts down the trees in front of them. The attack on the trees causes them to catch fire, and a blaze starts. Hubert tells their friends from the Kiel Kingdom to run and assures him they'll handle things. While they run, Hughes shows up and the 2 mages stand in the gap. Hubert sees the man and recognizes him. He recalls that the man is a disaster in the form of a human, and the Empire's great sword tiger. He notices his distinct features and recognizes him as McRae Hughes. Hughes looks at Russel and announces that he must be the famous disciple. A red screen suddenly pops up and notifies Russel that his mission is to make it back alive with Hubert from the danger. With rewards of 5 advanced grade mana stones and 7 intermediate mana stones, Russel reasons that the pressure the man emits just from looking at them is insane. Meanwhile, Hughes declares that he'll make him pay the price for taking his disciple's life. Hughes suddenly sends a crimson wave attack at them called the Sword Cremisi. Master Hubert quickly creates an earthquake, and Russel casts double shields to protect himself and Hubert from Hughes's attacks. The shield rips through the ground under Hughes's feet, and he cuts through some of the rocks with his sword and jumps to avoid the earthquake. When Hubert notices that Hughes avoided the first attack, he quickly responds with another. Hands come out of the ground and grab all of Hughes's limbs, and Hubert orders Russel to attack. In a split second, Russel closes in on Hughes with his blaze lance hand. The explosion from the hit is so strong that it sends rocks flying everywhere and blocks Hubert's field of vision. Russel jumps back into position to create some distance and see what happened to Hughes. From within the smoke, Hughes tells Russel that it seems he only learned tricks from his cursed master, referring to Dariah. Russel notices that Hughes wrapped his body in aura. Hughes puts his sword down and says he'll show them something interesting in return. He brings out a small crimson sword called Sword Fuchsia. Suddenly, energy bursts out from the sword and pierces Hubert in the chest. Hughes explains that it's a sword made from the bones of a dragon and corrupted with the blood of 10 mages. He quickly grabs his sword and runs toward them to finish them off, saying it's a sword perfect for fighting against mages. Russel picks up the wounded Hubert and attempts to fly away as Hubert hits the spot they were just on. As Russel flies into the sky, Hughes comments that his skills are impressive. Russel looks around and spots some stones that look like firebomb stones. Hughes throws another attack of several crimson waves at him and tells him to dodge this if he can. The waves fly into the air towards Russel in all directions, and Russel manages to dodge them. Meanwhile, Russel tells himself that the firebomb stones should be enough to confuse Hughes. Russel drops Hubert by a tree and lands back on the ground. Hughes asks him if he's trying to buy time for his friend, who had earlier escaped because he can't beat him. Russel doesn't say anything and speaks with Hubert. Russel asks Hubert to run and join the princess and the count when he gives the signal because he plans to buy some time. Hubert asks him if he's asking him to leave him there and run. Russel begs him to trust him and promises to go back with him. Hughes becomes impatient and asks them if they're done talking. Suddenly, Russel generates some lightning in his palms. With his new lightning essence, he fires a chain of lightning at Hughes. He gives Hubert the signal, and Hubert teleports away and runs into the woods. Russell tells himself that the firebomb stones will give Hubert enough time to escape. He reminds himself that he can't take Hughes lightly, so he adds a thunderstorm from his cloudy ring into the attack. Russell also activates the second stage of his draconification, and says that he'll give it his all. Finally, he drafts several blaze lances and magical spears at once to land one powerful attack. With all that power, Russell lands an explosive attack on Hughes, whom he had earlier electrocuted. Hubert, who has managed to find the Count and Princess, notices the explosion from where he is. The attack is so strong that it creates a crater-sized hole in the place. Russell retreats and guesses that his attack worked. Before he can finish his statement, Hughes says that he's really done it now and tells him not to think he'll die a peaceful death. Russell is shocked that he withstood that, and Hughes moves forward to land an attack. Hughes suddenly begins to struggle with his sword and curses, wondering what's wrong with the sword. A voice emerges out of nowhere and asks Hughes how he would dare try to harm the Dragon Lord with the bones of a dragon. Russell recognizes the voice as the one he heard in front of the dragon heart. The voice calls Hughes a ridiculous human, and the face of a huge dragon appears behind Russell. Russell wonders if it's the Dragon King speaking on his behalf. The Dragon King addresses Hughes for insolently trying to use dragon bones to harm the Dragon Lord, referring to Russell. Soon after, the Dragon King informs Russell that he's going to transfer him his power for a moment, and pleads with him to eliminate this vermin who insulted the name of the dragons. He also informs Russell to find the dragons, because their existence will allow him to reach him, and he will become the master and hope of the dragons that remain in this world. Suddenly, the power of the Dragon King courses through Russell's body, even though he doesn't understand what's going on. But he's certain that this power may help him defeat Hughes. Shortly after, Hughes is seen screaming after one of his hands is amputated by our boy. Russell comes in for the kill using Overheat and the Blaze Lance, but Hughes suddenly grows a phantom hand and grabs the Blaze Lance. He mentions that Russell seems to have underestimated him, and had thought that losing one of his hands would make any difference. When he references how the MC has arrogant eyes just like his father, Russell is surprised to know he knows his father. Apparently Hughes didn't just know his father, but had wanted to gouge out his arrogant eyes until someone beat him to it. Russell looks really confused, so Hughes asks him why he only thinks it was the Empire that killed his father. He suddenly appears behind him to strike, but Russell quickly spots him and tries to slash him, but he dodges it. Hughes responds with his own quick attack, and Russell quickly jumps back to avoid being hit. As he lands on his feet, he feels a sharp pain and realizes that Hughes had pierced him by the side before he was able to move back, and Hughes makes fun of him for not being able to dodge a simple attack. The knight blasts Russell again using his phantom hand, and our boy gets out of the way. While he's still dodging, Hughes comes in to slash him because his movements are predictable. Luckily, Russell quickly creates a shield right before Hughes lands a terrible attack. Even with the shield, the impact of the attack is so strong, and Hughes taunts him for having pathetic talent, even calling him a clumsy little piece of crap. While Russell is still affected by the impact of the attack, Hughes taunts that he can't reach a higher level without sacrificing something, and it's too early for a kid like him. As he moves in for the kill and strikes the spot that Russell is lying down in, our boy quickly uses his wings to fly away from the attack. As he flies away, he has no choice but to admit that his opponent is a superhuman and is out of the norm. While he's still flying away, Hughes chases after him, so Russell responds by summoning a wind wave. The wave covers up Hughes, but he still manages to tear through it, which surprises Russell and makes him wonder if it's impossible for him to win. Regardless, he chooses not to give up. He makes another move by changing the direction of gravity, which forces Hughes to stand on a spot and try to keep himself from floating off. To show Hughes how a mage fights, Russell uses another magic skill and triggers an explosion that covers up the spot Hughes is standing upon. He soon collapses on the ground due to the impact of the explosion and watches to see what will happen. He's shocked to see a burnt-up Hughes emerging out of the explosion and coming towards him. Hughes dashes towards him and strikes him with his new phantom hand, since he's basically lost both limbs now. The knight asks him if he really dared to fool him with his lowly petty tricks and tells him he's dead meat. Russell realizes he's in deep crap, so he uses the cloud ring to call the lightning giant. After all, Hughes himself had said that to soar higher, he needed to sacrifice everything. So he decides to sacrifice his lowly body to destroy him. The sudden bolt of electricity hits Russell's body and tosses away Hughes. Russell had stimulated his muscles with electricity and increased his speed explosively, which was his ultimate trump card until this moment. He quickly uses an original construct called the Swift Charging Lance, and goes in for a deadly strike while the burnt-up Hughes watches in despair. Russell, on the other hand, shows no remorse and pierces through the fool, but Hughes manages to strike him while he's passing by him, causing him to cough out blood. It turns out that the strike didn't do much to Hughes, and he laughs at the wounded Russell and knocks him down with a punch. As Russell is pummeled into the ground, he silently prays for another chance. But someone suddenly shows up and blasts Hughes away. The blast is so strong that it burns away a few of his limbs, and the man asks him how it feels to crawl on the floor like a bug. As Hughes struggles to pronounce the man's name, the man tells him it's time to die and drops an explosion on him, leaving nothing but a pool of blood behind. The man also finds it unbelievable that Russel was able to push Hughes to this extent all by himself. While the man realizes that Russel's desperate struggle just changed the fate of Endymion and Keel, Hubert and the others go to help him up. Now nobody can doubt his abilities, and it's truly the birth of a hero.